Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by InVision. Find out why so many hot startups are using InVision to prototype, present, and collaborate on design in real time. Sign up for a 90-day free trial today at invisionapp.com/twist. And by Citrix GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and sign up for a 30-day free trial.
A lot of people ask me, why the F is Glenn Beck at the Launch Festival? What does he have to do with technology? Well, Glenn Beck is running a technology company, a next generation media company himself, with tens of millions of listeners, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and he's doing it all digitally on his own terms, not at MSNBC, not at Fox. That's part one. As a digital entrepreneur, he deserved to be at the event. But part two is he represents those people in the heartland between New York, LA, and San Francisco, those people that us in the technology industry sometimes refer to as the flyover states. We dismiss them. But you know what? They're using our technology every day. Those are our customers. And he represents them. And we have this really great discussion about the future of jobs, the future of employment, the future of technology, privacy, government. I mean, this is a spanning conversation. And I'm really proud of it because I thought it was great to have an outside voice at the event. Does it mean I endorse everything he says? Does it mean I endorse him or his politics? Or does it mean I don't? That's not what this is about. We're just trying to have great conversations here on This Week in Startups, and this is one of the best we've ever recorded. You're going to love it. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Please welcome Glenn Beck. Thank you. Big round of applause. Now, you are a consummate professional broadcaster.
Yeah.
When they hear how bad your voice is, they're going to all tell you, please come back next year. Don't talk. But I thank you for coming and being a pro.
I've talked to about 10 people this morning, and all of them asked the same question. Why the hell are you here?
Why the hell are you here?
So that's my question for you. Why the hell am I here?
It's very interesting. It's a great question. There's a couple reasons. I know somebody who works at your company, Betsy, and we've been friends for a long time. And I have been fascinated by your career and also by the audience that I feel you represent. So we're here on the coast, and I'm from LA and New York previously, and then there's this whole group of people in the middle.
Yeah.
And this technology, and you hear all these conversations going on here, you're having a conversation with those people in between those states. And they have a worldview about us, and we have a view about them. We want them to use our products. They're using those products, and you're having a conversation with them.
Here's what I think is beyond products and us and them and everything, because our audience, we have listeners all over the world and on both coasts as well. But what our tribe is more of a, what I'm connecting with here. Last night I went out and had dinner with 10 or 12 people, and what excites me about the group of people here and in Silicon Valley is this is a group of people that still believe that tomorrow can be better, that man still can chart his own course, that you still can get up and change your life or change the world. That is a diminishing belief in the country. My tribe happens to believe in that, and if you want to go off the road, you can go off the road into dark, dark places, and seeing what is happening to the world and seeing the big power structures in New York and in Los Angeles and in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., that are digging their heels and digging their fingernails into anything to hold on. The entire world is about to change. And I don't think enough people really understand that. A lot of America is going to wake up, a lot of the world is going to wake up soon and say, when did this happen? Now. It's happening now. Yeah. And for the first time, really probably since the Industrial Revolution, the average person has an opportunity to chart a new globe, all the way down to borders. Everything is about to change. I want to be a part of that. My audience wants to be a part of that. We're not passive people.
Right.
We believe we are Americans because we believe that together we can do something great.
Yeah.
I think this group of people, and in Silicon Valley, it is really truly the only group of people that still believe in those things and are actively engaged in doing it.
It's fascinating too, because you talk about the freedom of the individual to pursue their chart in life, and there's all these words that are used to describe the people in the discussion. And I find this to be one of the most fascinating, because when I said, hey, Glenn Beck's coming here, I was on Glenn Beck's show, he's an interesting guy. You left the media, the big media circles, and started your own company. You became an entrepreneur. You're dog fooding what you're saying. You chose to blaze your own road here. Hundreds of employees, hundreds of thousands of people paying, or tens of thousands of people paying for the blaze in your podcast. I don't know the exact numbers, but inform the audience of what the blaze is and how big the audience is now.
The audience is currently a footprint of 50 million a month. It is digital, cable, traditional radio, now podcast, 3 million downloads a month in podcasts for audio alone. It's a significant audience, and an audience that the traditional media, when I was in New York, I worked for CNN and then I worked for Fox, and neither one of them was really willing to look at the future and say, gosh, all this stuff we've collected is going to be worthless soon because the world is changing. And my biggest problem was the gatekeepers. For the first time, I just spoke at a radio convention, and it was sad. I was in radio when I was 13 years old. And here are these guys who are sitting there, some of the biggest leaders now in radio, and all they're doing is talking about how the death of radio is here. Yeah, but there's a birth of something else. And these guys were talking about how, it's hard to find jobs now, et cetera, et cetera. I said, it's the easiest time to find a job. When I got into radio at 13, I had to have a license from the FCC. I had to go to a radio station, get hired. There were only 3 in town. If they didn't want me, then I had to go to one of the others, and so I was out. There was nothing I can do. Now, when I talk to radio people, I say, who's your competition? And they'll say Citadel or, ABC or Westwood or whoever. And that's not their competition. Your competition is a 16-year-old kid who has something authentic to say.
Yeah.
That's the key. Right now, if you are just authentic, I loved your last conversation with Fred when Fred was saying about investing in companies. Don't pay attention to the money.
Right.
The money is the byproduct. That's the last thing.
Right.
Pay attention to the tribe first. Pay attention. Right. Who are you serving?
Just think about all the money we spend on meetings, going to them, transportation, the time out of the office, the time to and from. It's an incredible amount of money. And let me tell you something. Most meetings can take place over GoToMeeting. Why? Because GoToMeeting has flawless HD. It has flawless screen sharing. The meetings start on time. It works on any platform, mobile, desktop, etc. I love the product. I use the product every day. And here's how it goes when I use it. My chief of staff will tell people, hey, have a great headset. Hey, have multiple people on headsets. Hey, use the voice over IP. It's amazing. Hey, get this 1080p camera, or just use the one that comes with your Mac. We've optimized to do these meetings perfectly and on time. And my life is so efficient because of GoToMeeting. I've been using GoToMeeting for a decade. They've been a sponsor and partner on this program for a couple of years, probably 4 out of the 5 or 6 years we've been doing this. Why? Because it's easy for me to read the ad. These other people who read the ad, they may not even use the product the way I use it. I use it daily, 3 or 4 times a day. And I'm looking at the copy. I covered everything. Just go to GoToMeeting today, try it free, GoToMeeting.com, you all know that, and get a free 30-day trial. I want you to try it. There is nothing to lose. It's an amazing product. Like I said, I use it all the time. And one of my favorite features, I can always give you the secret features. Hey, you can record the session, which is great to have that recording. Or there's a chat room built into it. So I always tell people, hey, keep the chat room open. So while you're pitching me, I'm going to type the questions. I literally type the questions in the chat room. Why? Because I don't have to interrupt the presenter. I just queue them up. And I say, answer these whenever you want. Think about that. If a person has that question answered later in their presentation to me, I just say, I'm going to put my questions in there. You can answer them at any time. You don't have to answer them in real time. So if I write a question like, how do you plan on making money? They don't have to stop the presentation and say, oh, I'm going to get to that. Please wait. No, they just keep talking. So that's my little hacks. I have these little hacks. And the chat room is one of them. Recording is another. Having multiple people on them at the same time. So I'll be in a conference room with 2 people, both on GoToMeeting, both on headsets, and on the television set on a third computer. So that we have 3 swings at the bat. Multiple people typing, multiple people on perfect clarity. Anyway, the product is fantastic. It's well worth the money. It's very affordable. So everybody thank at Citrix at GoToMeeting for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Let's get back to the program. I'm going to talk for 2 hours about GoToMeeting. I love the product.
Right. And who are you serving? Because this is the thing. I'm fascinated by politics because I know nothing about it. People tell me I'm a libertarian. You're a libertarian? How do you define yourself?
Libertarian.
Okay. I don't even know what it really means. All I know is that
I think it means somebody who believes in the individual over the government controlling the individual.
okay, so that is true. I believe that. I actually authentically believe that. Now, there's this, a lot of the issues we're facing now seem to cut across all the previous definitions. Socialism, communism, Republican, Democrat. When we talk about something like, I don't know, jobs and the future of the economy, people getting left behind, when you have a discussion about those issues, it seems like in the media, and you were part of that media, it all becomes instantly polarized.
Yes.
Do you regret like being part of that machine and the instant polarization of it?
Yes. Yes.
You do.
Yeah. My job was to expose people and teach people. I'm a storyteller.
Right.
And so it was to teach people what we are doing. What's amazing is I was teaching the same things on CNN when George Bush was in office, and I was calling for George Bush's impeachment.
Right.
For the things that he was doing in office, but nobody paid attention to me then.
Right.
It was only when I went over to Fox and we had a switch in presidents, and I'm saying the same thing. The problem is not left and right. I know a lot of people who are left of me, but they're not progressive. They're libertarian left. And so they believe that small government, but I want to live my life this way. I have no problem. I'll live next to anybody who lives, as long as you're not trying to regulate me,
Right.
and I'm not trying to tell you what church to go to or not go to.
Right.
What's the problem with that? That's the way we're supposed to be. It's only when we put everyone together and we really truly celebrate diversity
Yeah.
and say, man, I don't agree with you on anything, but let's go have a beer.
Right.
That's when we win. That's when we can really create something great.
And where do you think the country stands today in terms of Washington, D.C. and their ability to get things done?
0.
Okay, next question.
I don't see any. Look. Until the progressives in both parties are identified, and the American people, I think the Republicans and Democrats are just growing smaller and smaller because it's the same amount of BS from both of them. It doesn't matter. You vote for one and they do the same thing with just a different speed. So it's the same thing because it's a progressive ideology. Progressivism was started by Theodore Roosevelt, a Republican.
Right.
So it's the same crap. One just believes it should be done by the United Nations, and one believes it should be done by the United States and its military. Both of those are wrong. It's led us into 100 years of bloodshed and led us here. It doesn't work. Until we start to have, and this is what's growing, and this is what's so exciting about the entrepreneurs that now can connect. You don't need the media. So now when you can connect and say, look, it's freedom. It's freedom. Get this stuff out of our way. I trust my neighbor. I trust, generally speaking, I trust corporations much more than I trust the government. The bigger the corporation, the less I trust them. Comcast I don't trust.
Right.
I trust them more than the federal government because at least Comcast, in the end, if they don't have protection from the government, has to answer to someone like us.
Right.
But the smaller the company, the more I trust because you're my neighbor. I know you.
Yeah.
We trust each other. That's how we can get things done. And that's what's exciting about the technology of today. It allows me to connect one-on-one.
Yeah.
The idea, I've been in mass media my whole life. The idea of mass media is completely over. And what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you connect one-on-one? I'm addicted to Facebook because I can go on Facebook and then I can talk to my tribe as individuals. I mean, there's a guy who is here. He's just a listener of ours. He lives in San Francisco. He's having heart surgery today. I know about it.
Right.
I have time. I'm going to try to go to the hospital today and just go see him. That was unheard of before. Couldn't do that. Now someone can get right directly to me and we can have a one-on-one conversation and my mind can be expanded.
Right. And looking at the technology industry and how it's looked in Middle America, in this tribe, how are we perceived at this point in time? For good and bad. How are we perceived, in the homeland, in the heartland, do you think?
If I would be really pessimistic, and I don't think this is true, but I would think that most people think that the entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, if you will, if I'm going to just lump everybody together, are leftist big government guys. And so that's disheartening. I've been trying to point out to my audience the number of libertarians and the fact that the good guys are on the side of freedom, because once you take this genie out of the bottle, you can't stuff it back in.
Right.
And on the other side, I don't think anybody is talking to the average American. And so they're just being washed over with the results of your work.
Right.
And I'm a huge fan of Walt Disney. And in 1955, Walt Disney changed the world. He not only launched Disneyland in 55, but he did something far more important in 1955. He launched his television show at the same time, but there were 3 episodes that he did. The first one was in that first year. It aired the first month of the opening of Disneyland, and it was called Man in Space. And I believe that Walt Disney was looking at the same kind of time frame that we're looking at now. If you take yourself back in 1955, you had just finished World War I, and World War I was the war to end all wars, ended in bloodbath and then a pandemic. Then we went into World War II. It was even worse. People thought it was the end of the world. That one ended with a nuclear explosion. These were people who had grown up around the turn of the century and didn't have running water. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have anything. And now, short 45-year period, all of a sudden somebody my age is seeing a nuclear explosion. And they're now thinking that maybe we can go to space and all of human race could be wiped out overnight. That's frightening. So Walt builds Disneyland, and he builds it with berms. And his biggest regret was he couldn't get the berms big enough to block out the outside. And when you walk through that gate, there's only one entrance, and it takes you into the turn of the century Main Street. It's everybody's least favorite part of Disneyland because now it's nothing but t-shirt shops. But then there were real cobblers, there were hat makers, there were watchmakers. And what he did was he was taking the person who was my age with kids, with that berm of the outside world, and saying, this world makes sense. Do you remember this world?
Right.
It's all going to be okay. So for the adults, he put a blanket over them and said, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Then at the end of that road, you just turn right, and there's Tomorrowland.
Future.
Yes, the future. And what he did in 1955, in June of that year, or July of that year, is he did an episode called Man in Space, where he took Ward Kimball, who is this little weird black-rimmed glasses guy who did all of the 7 dwarves for Snow White. And he said, Ward, I want to introduce you to Wernher von Braun. Now, Wernher von Braun is the V2 rocket Nazi scientist, okay? But he believed that man could go to space and to the moon. Nobody believed that at the time. So he got Ward Kimball together with technology, the guy who was leading that technology, and said, tell the story. The story is that Man in Space was the first rerun to ever air in America because it was so wildly popular. And the story goes that Eisenhower called Walt and said, Walt, you son of a bitch, you did it. I've been trying to convince the Pentagon that we could go to space. You did something more important. You just convinced the American people we could go to space. Once you convince the American people we can do something, we can do it.
Right.
We have that opportunity again. Right now, we're those people without the berms and without Main Street freaking out, looking at tomorrow saying, what do you mean 50% of all jobs are going away? What does that even mean?
Right.
What do you mean the borders are going to change? What do you mean that money may not be money the way we understand it? It's too much. We've got to have a warm blanket and some people that get together and say, look, let me tell you the story of how it can be done.
Right.
If we do that, we win. And you calm everybody down. Right now, the tension that we're feeling, I really truly believe, is the tension of those who have power. Look, I have huge deals with Simon & Schuster. I've had deals with the biggest corporations around. I've got deals with Clear Channel. All of them are freaking out.
Yep.
All of them. Because they have all of this infrastructure, and they know it's all going away. So the tension we're feeling are those people trying to hang on as much as they can. Let go. Let go.
Just go towards the future.
Go towards the future.
And how do we build that consensus? You're a discussion leader, some discussion leading going on here. How do we actually tell that story? How do we have that conversation authentically? Because it's not happening on the TV news programs. And journalism seems to be coming apart at the seams. For every journalistic entity that actually does fact checking, it seems like the next 10 just print whatever gets emailed to them.
Yes. There's no journalism, I think, as we know it, is over. You're just going to have to rely. I mean, we're all changing. And so there's a new system coming up, and it's going to have growing pains. But trust the American people and trust people to do the right thing and to get it in the end.
Well, let's talk about some of the most...
If I may,
yeah.
The thing that we have to unite on are principles. And the principles, what's happening to us now in our country is we're all talking. I haven't heard a single politician talk to me about anything other than national interests. Well, my interests change from day to day. Yeah. My interest one day might be to have a whole bunch of milkshakes. That may not be in my best interest, another day. Interests don't matter. What are our national principles? We focus on interest too much. So we've got to focus on the principles.
And we look at those principles. Let's talk about privacy, the NSA, this issue. You have the companies here were in some way complicit with giving data over to the government.
Yeah.
When they got busted, they kind of denied it and started patching all the holes up. But you do have Apple, basically building their whole product line designed for privacy. You have Google, maybe wants to use all their data to do ads, but trying to lock things up. What do you think the solutions there are? Because, the whole idea of electing Obama, and a lot of the people here were instrumental in doing so. I mean, this was the number one spot. Chris Sacca said it, like when they want donations, they kind of come here first, Hollywood second now. Bigger checks here than Hollywood. And Sacca was one of the super donors, and Shervin was one of the super folks. We kind of elected him to shut down Guantanamo and bring America back.
Nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to do it.
Why not? I mean, nobody wants to have this surveillance state. Nobody wants to be at war with the Middle East forever.
Nobody, no president, no group of people have the balls, to say, yes, I shut it down, and then we were hit. Nobody has the balls. Nobody has the balls. Period. 2, nobody has the ball. Look, I love this. Hillary Clinton has lost those emails, and she was, excuse me, those emails are archived by the NSA. We know that.
Right.
So this bull crap, everything is archived. You're telling me that with everything archived, generally the scumbags that happen to be in Washington haven't said, I don't think you're going to be doing that. And they're going to have the balls to say, no, expose me. Too many people have too much to lose and not enough spine. What we need are more Americans who will stand up and say, there's a good thing about this, the death of shame. When everybody's pictures come out about them, because we're all putting our phones to charge it right next to our bed, so when you're doing whatever you're doing in bed and everybody's got it and everybody's pictures are out, we're all kind of like, oh, that one came out about you too? Yeah, you looked as ridiculous as I did. Once that happens, then maybe there's a reset and everybody isn't afraid anymore. But right now, we're afraid.
Reading ads for InVision is delightful for me. Why? Because, don't laugh, Jackie. If you laugh, how am I supposed to keep my shit together? Great ad reading. You just blew it. Come on, Jackie. Keep it together here. If I can keep it together, you can keep it together. Oh, should we just use this as the ad? My Emmy Award-winning producer. She's so professional. She's laughing at my ad read. I'm going to keep going. This is going to be the ad. I demand this becomes the ad. InVision, I love using it. And that's no laughing matter, Jackie. Because I use it to make mock-ups. And then I send them to my board, to partners, to potential employees, to potential investors, to potential M&A people, business development. And when they open it, and you can see on my phone, it's just filled with InVision links, InVision. I send them the InVision link. They open up the app, boom, on their phone, and they can play with the app because there's little hotspots, and they can test it. This whole idea that you're going to have this big debate and a big, huge meeting and whiteboards and everything going on because, you're trying to build a great product, hogwash. All you have to do is send an InVision link to people, and if you send them the InVision link, they can play with it, and then they can have a reasonable discussion about how the product feels on their actual phone or their desktop. And you can put comments on it. So I can say, right here, take this out. Right here, increase the font. I put the crosshairs on the part of the app I want to change or see a different version of. And they have this audit trail inside the app, so I can see the activity on this project. Oh, look, I asked everybody to go look at this and give me their feedback. 7 did, 3 didn't. Then I screenshot that and I send it to each of the 3 people who didn't. I said, hey, are you guys going to comment on this or not? That's efficient. That's leadership. And that's what InVision allows me to do. And they're giving away their starter plan for 90 days. You're insane if you don't take them up on this offer. InVisionApp.com/twist. InVisionApp.com/twist. Twitter, Airbnb, Evernote, Adobe, and Inside all use it. And Launch use it. It is amazing. Give feedback. You're just going to get great feedback from all your clients and shareholders. That's it. No more confusing email chains as well. It's awesome. InVision app on Twitter. Go ahead and thank them. And the CEO is a real great guy as well. He came to the launch festival and was a great judge, and he was just a tremendous supporter of startups. Okay, let's get back to this amazing program.
Torture, NSA, and the Islamic
National
State.
principles.
Right.
We don't torture.
Right.
National principles. We don't spy on Americans.
Right.
National principles. Our interests say we've got to torture. Our principles say no. That's why we're hated around the world and not trusted, because our principles are non-existent.
What role do you think the technologists play here in that? Because we kind of define it first. I mean, we build the product.
Everybody is allowed a gimme.
Yeah.
Everybody's allowed a mistake.
Right.
Everybody was doing, I believe, what they thought was right for the country, because I really, truly believe we all generally believe the same thing. We all generally want to trust one another. We all generally believe nobody hates America. There are those who hate, but generally speaking, we're fine. Let the system work itself out. We'll gather together. We all generally believe that. And the government comes to us and says, hey, we need some help on that. Okay, we'll do that. It's a new dawn. The government is not who Uncle Sam is wearing stripes because he should be in prison. So when you're looking at Uncle Sam coming to you, he's your creepy, spooky uncle. Don't help him.
Yeah. Like the bailouts, the NSA, the torture. I mean, these things are adding up now where it's kind of hard sometimes to be an American and see the behavior of the government. How does the populace then get our will more in sync with what's happening in Washington.
All anybody has to do, I think all anybody...
Because voting doesn't work, right? I mean, it doesn't
What
seem
doesn't work?
Voting. I mean, it's like you have two choices. It doesn't seem to be having a big impact.
Because we keep playing the same game. Oh, well, that guy can't win.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote for that one because that one can.
Right.
What? I mean, who in their right mind thinks that Jeb Bush is going to be a winner? Bush.
Like it kind of like we progressively got the worst Bush. It's like we're kind of...
Now they're all pretty bad.
Yeah.
The Bushes.
Just overall.
Let's cut those hedges down and move on. Plant some new trees.
New tree. I think I get some... I want to talk a little bit about the unemployment issue because we have this kind of like discussion, and I think a lot of people feel like there's a duping going on. We keep saying, "Hey, it's going to get better. Jobs are going to come back."
No, it's not.
What do you think is actually going to happen?
I think that I happen to believe that my son, who is 10, probably will not go to college. It'll be something entirely different, self-directed. And he should prepare his life to be working for companies that are dramatically changing, and he is dramatically changing and reinventing himself every 3 to 5 years. And it's going to be a very different world, but a good world if you stay nimble. And that's the biggest key, is the calcification of our minds. I knew my father was about to die. He was 75, and I said, "Dad, you have to read this book." And my father was always an explorer. And I said, "You have to read this book. It's unbelievable." And he said, "No, I think I'm done on that subject." And I said, "Oh, you should read this book." "Yeah, I'm kind of done." He had calcified. He was no longer interested in exploring anymore. That was the beginning of the end for him. And unfortunately, we've lived in a world where you could calcify at 30. You just were who you were. That's over. And it's a really exciting thing. As a guy who was an alcoholic, raging alcoholic until 35, that completely changed my life, it's great to restart. And if we can take the fear away, find the berms, and take the fear away from people and say, it's going to be okay. It will be better tomorrow than it is today. Let go. Explore. It'll be great.
What do you think our view of the world should be when we look outside of our borders? Do we have the ability to be sort of the police of the world anymore?
No, and we shouldn't. Look, here is, I've been warning about, first of all, when I was at Fox, I warned about the caliphate, and everybody mocked me on the caliphate. I mean, they were even sounding the word out on most networks. And now we have the caliphate. We have the Islamic State.
Unpack that one for the second with the Islamic State. How big of an issue is this? Like, you have 1.5 billion Muslims approximately. When people say radical Muslim, radical Islam, and people get insulted, hey, you're insulting religion, what's your take on that? Because when people cut people's heads off and say, I'm doing this for religion, and they say a prayer before and after, we're supposed to disconnect the religion, but they're cutting the head off to the prayer.
Yeah, no, this is not radical Islam. This is psychotic Islam.
Right.
And when they cut the heads off of all the people on the beach, the banner up above said, "A message in blood to the people of the cross."
Right.
Okay, so I think they're fighting a holy war.
But we're not supposed to watch those videos.
Yeah, whatever.
We're not supposed to know what's going on over there.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen the production value on these videos?
Yes. And
when you see that production value, what do you think as a broadcaster?
I think they are taking it seriously, and I think they have gotten really, really, really smart. And what they're doing is they're using the internet to connect with individuals and calling them out and saying, come, because here's why this is happening. They believe in something. We don't.
Right.
They believe in something. They believe in something fundamental. It's screwed up, it's psychotic, but they believe in something. Too many people don't even know what they believe in anymore. What are we as a people?
Right.
Okay? So what they believe, and this is really critical, this particular group is a group that believes, we don't have to believe it, it can sound insane, and it is, but they believe they are the army of Armageddon. Okay, so what they're doing is, when they said a message to the people of the cross, they are calling on the Roman army, and they are saying, come fight us now.
Right.
Because they're hastening the return of their promised one that will wash the world in blood. It's crazy. The scary thing is, Russia is the only one now that is standing up against Islamic extremism, but they are fascistic, and their plans, and this is the words from Putin, he is creating the third Roman Empire. When he went into Crimea, that was his goal. He is planting, and what's exceptionally dangerous, and I've been warning the Christian community, you're in bed with people you don't even know you're in bed with. You are one handshake away from Vladimir Putin, maybe two. He is funding all kinds of anti-homosexual bullcrap through the Christian communities all around the world. And he's getting the Christians to rise up and say, hey, they're just like me. They're not. This is Hitler on steroids against the army of Armageddon. And what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're not even talking about it.
We're feeling guilty that we called it a religious war. I mean, people don't want to call it a religious war.
Here's the thing. We should pull every single one of our troops home until we have the balls to say what we're really doing. I am so tired of people saying, well, you know, I don't like torture, but, you know, they just have to do what they have to do. No, they're doing it in your name. And if you don't want it done, then you have to say, I don't want it done. If you want somebody killed in your name, you have to go serve, you have to look at it, you have to be the one that watches the damn video and says, do we allow a world to crucify children because of their religiosity or not?
Right.
But I want you to watch it. And then, if you watch it, I then need you to pay attention to what's happening to the rest of the world geopolitically, then look at our resources and see if we can do anything, and then make the decision.
Right.
We are all in or we're not.
Period. Yeah, I happen to agree. All right, listen. We have a video we wanted to play. I think I'm going to play the video.
This is a
What did we
this
watch?
is a quick. This is just an edited version of this. This is something that we are premiering on Facebook on Thursday at 6.
Like this ended in global war and tens of millions dead. The similarities between now and then are striking. When the Ukraine protests escalated, pro-Russian gunmen seized government buildings in the Crimean capital. Russia's parliament approved Putin's request to use force to protect Russian interests. On March 18, 2014, Putin signed a bill allowing for Russia to annex Crimea. March 12, 1938, Germany annexed Austria, calling it Anschluss, which means union. Hitler dubbed it the reunification of Austria with the German Reich, and he ordered a national referendum. Annexation passed with a highly suspicious 99.7% of the vote. 76 years later, to the week, Putin celebrated what he called the, quote, reunification of Crimea with Russia, and immediately held a referendum. Annexation passed with 97% of the vote. So similar were the two events, the Moscow Times labeled Putin's move Anschluss. And that's just the beginning. May 1938, Hitler presents a battle plan to take over Czechoslovakia to war generals. May 2014, pro-Russian separatists declare independence in Donetsk and Luhansk. With German citizens leery of war, Hitler unleashes a propaganda campaign. Goebbels declares he will not stand by while ethnic Germans suffer in Sudetenland. Now, Putin claims he's protecting ethnic Russians. August 1938, Hitler sends 750,000 soldiers to intimidate the Czechoslovakians. August 2014, Putin sends convoys into the Ukraine to intimidate. September 30th, 1938, the Czechoslovakian president agrees to almost all the demands in the Munich Agreement. September 5th, 2014, Ukraine and pro-Russian rebels sign a truce. After Munich, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain infamously declared peace in our time upon returning from signing the agreement. And he says Hitler is a man who can be trusted. Less than 6 months later, the Nazis took over Czechoslovakia. After the truce in Minsk, gunfire erupted and war broke out 2 weeks later. So where does it all end? We know what happened in 1939. The question is, what happens in 2015?
So we're doing these once a week on Facebook.
They're kind of explainers, like
Yeah.
explaining to you the history. You're trying to get people leveled up to what happened.
And more importantly, we are in a critical time period, and it's really going to be difficult for me to understand, have people to understand. I am not calling for war, and I am not calling for a rush to arms. I am warning against it because we are undereducated on what is happening in the world. We are facing, I believe, World War III with the armies of fascism that are rising now and soon will be seen, and then also the fascistic, psychotic Islam in the Islamic State, the Caliphate.
Yeah, and they want one thing, the Islamic State, which is
Blood.
one state, blood, and we win everything.
Yes.
What's Putin's motivation? Because I've talked to people in the government, I've talked to people who are pretty smart on this subject. They think he might have gone insane. They think he just, richest guy on the planet, that people can't read him.
Yeah,
what his goal is, because he's going to be dead soon anyway, and
Yeah,
Russia...
the people around him are far more frightening. We did a special called The Root. It was a 3-hour special about the people around him, and they are far more frightening. They are, I'm trying to remember the name of one of the guys. He's now the head of Moscow University and one of the main advisors. He literally looks to Hitler as his icon to begin. He doesn't think Hitler was good enough. And he is looking to sweep all of Europe. And the other guy is the guy who runs the military, who is the mastermind behind Crimea. And they are playing into Putin. And I'm afraid that if Putin doesn't push, these guys will push underneath him. It's a frightening situation.
It is, and we didn't even get to China, Pakistan.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of other wild cards there.
Like the little bubble we were in, though, at the beginning, that you can change the world.
You can, and I don't mean to frighten everyone at the end, but I do think that the dialogue and using media to have a factual dialogue and using these tools. We had a tool yesterday, Fiskit, which lets you go through articles and actually say, hey, this is what I think is correct, this is what I think isn't.
Right.
And the more structured, fact-based dialogue happening on the web. Yes, it devolved for a time, and clearly, talk media devolved. Now, can we bring it back up? Can we have a high-level discussion? I think we can.
The most important thing is to not calcify on things that we don't know. Most people don't know me. I don't know them, but we have this image of each other. Yeah. Silicon Valley is this. Glenn Beck is that.
Yeah.
No, it's not really.
Yeah.
So let's start having a conversation because many of our principles align.
Yeah.
And the fundamental principle is man should be free to set his own course.
Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Beck.